Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're going to dig into a company called AI IntelliCore. They're on a mission to really shake up the world of investing, aiming to give more people access to the kinds of tools that were once reserved for the absolute elite. You know, if you're an investor, you've probably felt it. That feeling of just being buried under a mountain of market noise, endless data, and that little nagging voice in your head that says the really powerful tools, the best stuff, is locked away for a select few. Well, this is where a firm called AI IntelliCore steps in. They basically looked at that exact problem and built their entire company around solving it. Their mission is all about empowering investors like you, cutting through all that noise and giving you the tools to make confident decisions, even when things feel completely uncertain. But here's what's so interesting. This mission wasn't dreamed up in some quiet, comfortable boardroom. Oh no. It was literally forged in the fire of real-world financial chaos over decades of watching the global economy get pushed to its absolute breaking point. Just think about it. The founder, a Wall Street veteran, had a front-row seat to one crisis after another. We're talking the Asian currency crisis back in the late 90s, the huge 2008 meltdown, the European debt crisis, right up to the COVID-19 pandemic. And through it all, one thing became painfully crystal clear. The traditional ways of managing risk just weren't cutting it anymore. And here's the key takeaway from all that chaos. Each one of these massive global shocks wasn't just a disaster to be survived. It was a lesson. It was proof that investors desperately needed a totally new way to see, to understand, and to manage all the risks that were hiding just below the surface of the market. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. What is this core innovation that came out of all that experience? How do you actually see risk in a brand new way? All right, so it really comes down to a huge shift in perspective. The old way, well, it relied on models that worked great, right up until the moment they completely failed you. They would often miss these subtle, hidden stresses building up right before a major market shift. This new approach, they call it financial turbulence, is designed to do the exact opposite. It's built to capture those hidden vulnerabilities and, crucially, to identify those big shifts between risk-on environments, when everyone's feeling confident, and risk-off environments, when fear takes over. To do this, they developed their own proprietary tech called the Financial Turbulence Indicator, or FTI. And honestly, the best way to think about it is this. It's like upgrading from a simple thermometer that just tells you today's temperature to a full-blown Doppler weather radar that shows you exactly where the storm fronts are building long before the first drop of rain falls. It's about seeing the whole weather system, not just reacting to the temperature. So that sounds powerful, right? But a great idea is one thing. How do you turn that into practical, everyday tools that an investor can actually use? Well, they did it by building a whole suite of structured, ready-to-go products. And these tools cover all the big stuff, the core things you need to do when you're managing a portfolio. Things like adjusting your market exposure based on those risk signals, getting a much deeper look at your own portfolio's weak spots, guiding decisions about when to rotate between different assets, and even getting daily ideas on specific stocks. But this is where the story gets really fascinating, because beyond all these structured, neat and tidy tools, they built something else, something with total open-ended flexibility. They created what they call AI agents. Now, these aren't just tools in a toolbox. Think of them more like having a whole team of brilliant PhD-level analysts working just for you 24/7. They've essentially encoded decades of human expertise into these agents, which can then sift through mountains of messy data to pull out genuinely actionable insights. It lets you explore financial questions in a way that's totally dynamic and unscripted. And, this brings up such a critical point about AI, especially when you're talking about something as complex and high stakes as finance. The technology, no matter how smart, is only ever as good as the human brains that built it and continue to guide it. And the team behind AI IntelliCore, these are not just a bunch of software engineers. You're looking at a leadership team and advisory board that brings more than a century and a half of combined real-world hands-on experience in global finance, risk management, and tech. And we're not talking about just theory here. This is real-world, in-the-trenches stuff. The founder personally navigated portfolios worth over $70 billion, just some of the biggest financial crises we've ever seen. You can't simulate that kind of experience. And their advisory board? It's an absolute powerhouse. We're talking about people who've had senior roles at places like the IMF and the World Bank, with advanced degrees from Harvard and Oxford. These are the kinds of minds that have advised on tens of billions of dollars for huge pension funds. That is the deep well of knowledge that these AI agents are drawing from. So let's pull it all together then. You've got this battle-tested technology, you've got these world-class human experts. What's the end game? What is the big idea driving all of this? And here it is, plain and simple. Their whole mission is to democratize this stuff, to take the kind of proprietary, top-tier intelligence and analytical tools that have always been locked away inside the world's most elite hedge funds, and to finally make them accessible to a much, much wider range of sophisticated investors. And really, it leaves us with this fascinating question for the future of finance, doesn't it? As AI keeps getting smarter and smarter, to the point where it basically becomes an expert investor in its own right, who's really going to have the edge? Will it be the human with all our intuition and experience? Will it be the machine with its incredible, tireless analytical power? Or will the real, unbeatable advantage belong to those who can master the synthesis of both?